Hi, I'm Professor Steve Gedeon, and today I'm coming from La Rocca di Sforzesca di Dozza, just outside of Bologna. Notice a theme yet? Yes, in the ECLD module. I came from my classroom at the University of Bologna at the Bologna Business School. So here I'm just outside of Bologna at the Rocca Sforzesca di Dozza. And in this beautiful castle, there is also an art museum and the Enoteca Regionale di Emilia-Romagna. Emilia-Romagna is a really wonderful region of Italy. It's the food capital, and they have more protected food groups, or what are they called? PTO, Protected Designation of Origin groups, like Parmigiano Reggiano, Parma ham, Mortadella, and things like that. I think they have over 30 PTOs in the Emilia-Romagna area. And I work with the Food Innovation Program and the Future Food Institute to teach food innovation. Also in the Emilia-Romagna area, I work at Unimore, the Università di Modena e Reggio Emilia. And so the Emilia-Romagna region is home of the Motor Valley. This is where companies such as Lamborghini, Maserati, Ferrari, Bugatti all reside. It's one of the most exciting, prosperous regions in Italy. So, tool number 4. In tool number 4, we're capturing insights using convergent thinking tools. I'm going to be covering a variety of convergent thinking tools today. I'm going to be covering your Tshape Profile, your SWOT, or Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats diagram, Customer Profile Canvas, resume or your curriculum vitae or your CV, your unique selling proposition, and this is often something that goes into the objective of your resume. And finally, I'm going to give you some guidelines on how to capture your 5 primary design challenges for this course. So the first tool or lens I'm going to be giving you today is called your Tshape Profile. Now this is a design thinking tool which is used for assessing and describing how you contribute to multidisciplinary design teams. The audience is potential group members or networking or audiences like that. This is a graphical representation of your deep domain expertise as well as your broad collaboration skills. And the purpose is a variety of things. Partially it's to give a pictorial or a graphical representation of your expertise and your skills, but it's also to demonstrate your diversity, your creativity, and to some extent to demonstrate your graphical skills, that this is a portrayal of who you are. Next tool is the SWOT diagram, the Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. Now this particular tool arises out of the strategic management literature. That this is a tool that business management students learn for how to articulate your sustainable competitive advantage. It's basically a planning tool, not really a search tool. But it gives you on the strengths and weaknesses is an internal analysis of yourself. What are your internal strengths and weaknesses? But then externally, on the opportunities and threats, what are your external opportunities, or what are the things that are threatening you? Now the threats of this SWOT diagram often arises out of a pestle analysis. So the purpose of a SWOT diagram is to compare yourself to your competition and to plan to be in a good industry space through your opportunities and threats, but also with minimum risk in the face of adversity. So you don't have big threats in the industry that you're choosing to go to. So the purpose of the SWOT diagram is to compare yourself to your competition and to plan to be in a good industry space. So your strengths and weaknesses should be sources of sustainable competitive advantage against other people, that you're different from other people, and that your strengths are unique and valuable. And your weaknesses are not so bad, that you don't have to do things that you're weak at. But also that you're looking for a good competitive space to be in. So your opportunities should be good growth opportunities and interesting places, and you want to minimize the risk in the face of adversity. So you don't want to be entering into an industry that has a high risk of being legislated out of existence, or a high risk of global competition, or being disintermediated, as an example. And finally, since you're looking for sustainable competitive advantage through your SWOT, your SWOT should be different from other people's SWOT. that you should be unique, you should be interesting, that you should be able to say, here's something that captures other people's attention about how you're better, or what opportunities you're searching for, or what threats you're trying to avoid. So you want your SWOT to be different from everybody else's. The next one is the customer profile canvas. Now this comes out of a design thinking tool from Value Proposition Design, the Business Model Canvas, and Osterwalder's books. But one of the important foundational concepts is this idea of a job to be done. And I think that most students are tempted to go, oh, I know what a job to be done is. You probably have no idea what a job to be done is unless you've watched Christensen's short video on the original research that went into understanding what a job to be done means. So Christensen is a really authoritative person. He's from the Harvard Business School. I've given you a link for a relatively short way to understand in detail what a job to be done is. The purpose of a customer profile canvas is to capture your wants, to capture your needs. You are the customer. What do you want? Normally the tool is to capture other customers that you're looking to provide value to. This time, you're the customer. What do you want? So here's what a customer profile canvas looks like. This comes right out of Value Proposition Design. You can also download the canvas off of the Strategizer website. But what you're trying to articulate are what are the core needs that you're trying to fill, called jobs. And again, watch the Christensen video to understand what we mean by jobs to be done. So, for example, saying, well, my job to be done is I need a job. What you really need to understand more detail about what a job is what more basic need are you trying to fulfill. So these are the must-haves in any kind of thing that you're searching for. The gains are things that would excite you, things that would be exciting, things that would be very useful to also have in addition to the jobs. And the pains are things you really want to avoid, things that might be enragers or things that you're like, I really don't want to punch a time card, or I don't want to have meetings before 7 a.m., or things that you really want to avoid. So this is a good way to capture some of the insights from your Post-it notes. Now your customer profile canvas will also vary depending on what your design challenge is. So your customer profile canvas of what you need from a job might be very different than your customer profile canvas for what you need from a social venture, or for what you need from a trying to obtain social capital, or what you're trying to get out of a side hustle. So for example, a core job to be done for getting a job might be a good salary, whereas a core job to be done for a side hustle might be more about development of human capital, development of your knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or to be gaining domain expertise, or to be getting better social capital. So sometimes you might say, well, I'm doing this startup primarily to learn about the industry more than the amount of money that it might get. Whereas a kind of 9-to-5 full-time employment thing, kind of the core thing might be, I want to make enough money to feed my family, as an example. Okay, next tool I want to talk about is the resume or the curriculum vitae. Now this is a must-have for pretty much any job application, but it should also be customized for each individual, that you'll have a template of a resume or a CV that is kind of a storehouse for all the things that you might want to say for yourself, but then you pull from this template into a specific application or a specific bundle of skills that you have that you want to portray to a specified individual or a specified company, to demonstrate that you understand what their needs are, not just what you want, but what they want. So as an example, in the objective portion of a resume, you never want to say, well, I want this and I want this and I want this. What you really want to say is, I want to contribute to you. I want to contribute my talents to a great organization. So it's really not about what I'm looking for, it's about what do I think the employer is looking for, and how can I signal to them that I get what they're looking for and demonstrate fit within their organization. Your format, grammar, and style says a lot about you. If it looks ugly or lame, it says a lot about yourself. You need it to pop out. You need it to be visually appealing. You need it to be grammatically perfect, or else it says, I can't even be bothered to do a spell check on a resume. I'm going to be a sloppy employee. I'm going to be a lazy employee. I'm not going to be a good employee who checks their spelling and grammar on their emails. I can't even be bothered to fix my resume. I have to laugh when I see a resume that says, I'm very detail-oriented, and they misspell the word oriented. It's like, you're not detail-oriented. It goes right to the bottom of the pile or the garbage can. So make sure that you put the time and the effort into making this resume or CV a good representation of who you are and the quality, the appeal, and the marketability and the flair that you have as an individual. Make sure that your resume pops out. Has to be easy to skim. Don't expect everyone to read every word. They've got to be able to scan very quickly to see if they're looking for it. Unfortunately, very often people don't put the time and the effort into the resume that you want them to. They just glance at it to see if the major points pop out to them or not. And of course, if you're sitting in a pile of resumes, like, you've got maybe 15 seconds to pop up to the top. Otherwise, forget it, you're in the garbage can. Another thing is to emphasize the areas that are important. For most of you in your young life, the most important thing that you've done so far is spend 4 years at Ryerson University to get a good education. So if you've got a description of a cashier job that's this long, you want to make sure that your Ryerson education is at least as long as that. In fact, you probably want your cashier thing to be short and your Ryerson description to be long. Rather than just saying, I've got a degree, like, that doesn't say anything about what you did for 4 years. You should talk about what you learned in your degree program and talk about some of the cool classes you had, or maybe some of the cool projects that you did, or talk about how your program is unique and different. So, for example, for ENT graduates at Ryerson University, I frequently say, you should say on your resume, Ryerson's the largest entrepreneurship program on the face of the planet, and that we win all kinds of awards and how many startups. And this says a lot about you, that you went to a prestigious organization rather than, well, I went to Ryerson and got a BCom. Well, a lot of people have a BCom. A lot of people on the other side of the planet have a BCom. So how do you differentiate yourself from anybody else in the world that's got a BCom? Another thing is you should mention what your GPA is unless it's really bad. So if you don't mention your GPA, everyone's going to assume that it's below a 3. So if it's at least above a 3, you should probably put it on there. And if you can't say something good about your GPA, you should at least say something like, I got good grades in the courses that mattered, or I got good grades in my major program, or I got good grades in my 4th year, or my GPA in my 4th year was over a 3, or something like that. You want to be able to say something nice about yourself. Okay, unique selling proposition. The purpose of this is to have a short, tight thing to talk about yourself with at networking events, or sometimes on your resume, or maybe as a cover letter. It's got to be short. It should be under 30 seconds, and it should be memorable. So you start with divergent data gathering, using the post-it notes that you already have, and then you do convergent thinking to maybe sort using a 2x2 matrix, or words that you particularly like, or things that you think are important, or things that you might be thinking are motivational, but you're looking for good keyword-laden terminology here. You might want to add some more motivational or important keywords if you don't feel that your current keywords are strong enough. You want to condense this maybe into a longer USP, usually in writing, and then further edit this to shorten it and make it an appropriate length. You should probably have a written version as well as something that you can remember for oral delivery. If you can't remember it, other people sure can't remember it. If you can't remember it, nobody else can either. Finally, capture your 5 primary design challenges. The first one is a design challenge around getting a job or an entrepreneurial position or something related to either your current or your future full-time employment, if that's something that is on the table for you. Another possible series of design challenges would be related to a side hustle or a startup opportunity or self-employment or a gig. Often this is stuff that you do outside of your job in order to build your human capital and your social capital, that you're building your knowledge, skills, and attitudes through your side hustle. So your design challenge might be a little different than this than it might be for your primary employment. You should have a design challenge for your building of social capital or a social venture or some kind of a change-making project. You should have a design challenge around your human capital or your character. What are you doing to build your knowledge, skills, and attitudes? And hopefully this is something that's actually a challenge. So like you can't have a challenge to say, well, I want to graduate from Ryerson. Like that's a planning-based thing. To some extent, all you got to do is follow the path and you'll get your degree. So your challenge has to be challenging, has to be interesting, has to embed some kind of insight into what's challenging about this as compared to, well, I got to take a bunch of classes and pass them all. That's not really particularly challenging in the overall scheme of things. Finally, I'd like to suggest that you have a challenge related to overall balance in your wheel of life. So you want to capture your design challenge. I'm going to suggest you capture at least 5 design challenges, and this is good practice for you. That the purpose is to start the next double diamond and enable you to search for whether it's employers or customers or users or partners or organizations or projects or personal growth opportunities, that you're using this design challenge to stimulate the next series of double diamond tools. It should be short enough to remember, but you can also bundle in details in order to give you direction. So for example, your design challenge could consist of something relatively short and memorable, but then also references either your customer profile canvas or your USP or maybe your resume or something like that. You should benchmark your design challenge against the ECLD Module 3 guidelines. And here they are very quickly. You should start off with good questions. You should do good visualization during the course of this diamond. We talked about creating lots of post-it notes in the ECLD Module number 3. You can use your post-it notes for the filling out of your customer profile canvas as an example. You want to have good insights and discoveries at the end of your design challenge. You want to make sure you make good progress and you've learned something from going from A to B. And finally, when you articulate your design challenge, this should be a good starting point for the next double diamond. So what did we learn in tool number 4? Well, we learned about your Tshape profile, we learned about your SWOT, we learned about your customer profile canvas, we looked about your resume or your curriculum vitae. I talked about your unique selling proposition, and finally, how to capture your 5 primary career-related design challenges. Well, that's the end of tool number 4. Remember, entrepreneurship is like learning how to play the guitar. Crank it up to 11.